The Pittsburgh Pirates appear to be bringing back Derek Shelton for 2025. Is it the right move?
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. My name is Ethan Smith. You could follow me on Twitter right there at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates from a lifelong fan to lifelong fans just like you. And the Pittsburgh Pirates' final weekend home series of 2024 is coming up Friday, so you might want to use Game Time if you want to go, because you can use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do indeed apply when you're going on Game Time. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, of course, swept the season series of the Miami Marlins. We'll get into that a little bit later on the show, as well as talking about McCutchen preparing to return for 2025, the model for improvement for this team and what they need to improve on to be a contending team next season. And based off of some pregame comments that we got from General Manager Ben Cherington, it appears that Derek Shelton will be coming back as the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2025. This is very interesting because if you've watched this show, shout out to my everydayers who listen to this show every single day, whether it drops in the afternoon like now, or if it drops early, or if it drops whenever. Thank you for listening. Derek Shelton, before the game today, said, "I fully expect Shelty to be the manager in 2025. I think there's a lot to the job. I believe he's done really, really well. And I also believe he works his tail off to continue to improve in a number of ways. Seeing that, I believe he's the right person to manage this team in 2025. So I fully expect that will happen." This comes out after DK Pittsburgh Sports, of course, mentions that if Derek Shelton and the coaching staff don't have a good ending to the season, which they've been playing good as of late, then they won't be coming back. And he wasn't guessing. This comes after a lot of question marks had risen about Derek Shelton and where he would be when 2025 comes around. Would he even be here? Would half the coaching staff even be here? I mean, you guys heard me talk on Monday about this when we were discussing Shelton and saying that I think at this point it's the coaching staff as a whole that you're making these decisions on. Now, I will say, if Derek Shelton does indeed come back in 2025, that does not mean that Andy Haynes will be back in 2025. That does not mean that Oscar Marine will be back in 2025. But I find this decision, just as an immediate thought, I find it puzzling that he said this before the season ended and how things could go over the next couple of weeks before the season does indeed end, because we don't know how that's going to go. And of course, the Pirates getting their 70th win of the season today, moving to 70 in 76. But since being hired in late November of 2019 to replace Clint Hurdle as the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Derek Shelton has posted a 288 and 404 record, which amounts to about a 415 winning percentage in his 5 seasons as the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He also was the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2021 and 2022 when they had their first back-to-back 100-loss season since the mid-1950s. If you were alive or born in the mid-1950s, that was a long time ago. And that was done under Derek Shelton. Now, I gave him a pass for a while because the talent that was here was not adequate enough to really judge the job that he would be able to do. You look at last season, O'Neal Cruz was hurt all year. You had whatever you wanted to call that pitching staff outside of Keller and Oviedo, and you just didn't really have the talent. Even in 2022, you didn't have the talent. 2021, you were without Ke'Bryan Hayes for 3 months out of the season. So I gave him a pass. But then you go to this season and you look at last month when they had the 10-game losing streak that effectively put them in the position that they're in now, where they're not going to make the playoffs, more than likely not going to have a 500 or a winning campaign. And that is not the first time this has happened. It happened in 2023. The Pirates were right there with Milwaukee and Chicago in June for the division. Now, obviously, much earlier in the season, and they lost 9 in a row to Milwaukee and Chicago. And of course, there were lengthy losing streaks in 2022, and there were lengthy losing streaks in 2021. I do want to add something else that Charrington said here. I think it's just the overall work ethic, care level, showing up every day, looking for where we can find improvement, whether that's with individual players or into coaching, whether that's in our game prep process, whether that's how we review. It's not perfect. We make mistakes. We're constantly trying to figure out how to get better and close any gaps we have. So you're trying to work on getting better while also trying to figure out what gaps you can close. But now you're in confidence telling reporters that Derek Shelton, who, mind you, again, has a .415 winning percentage as the manager of the Pirates since 2020, that you're going to bring him back next year, and then a few sentences later say that you're constantly trying to get better and fix whatever gaps that you have. That's kind of backwards, folks. It's very backwards thinking. And it's thinking that just doesn't really make any lick of sense. Because if you go back and look at every single thing that has happened this year for the Pittsburgh Pirates and what's gone wrong and the decision-making that has happened, almost every single time that something is mentioned as far as the decision-making of this team, Derek Shelton's name has been attached to it. And they're not where they want to be. They're not where fans want them to be. And they were there at the trade deadline. They were giving us a realistic shot to think that they could potentially fight for a playoff spot down the stretch. And then it just got ripped away. And it's a lot, like I've mentioned on this show before, that there's been one constant in all this. In all the times that this has happened, there's been one constant in this. And it's been Derek Shelton. Now, he did say, I do believe that it's an opportunity for us overall in baseball operations to continue to strengthen and improve, discussing Junior Vizcaíno. And we've made a good amount of change across baseball operations in the last several years. Change is going to be constant. This is the change that's happening this year. So that indicates that nothing's going to happen with Derek Shelton. Now, my immediate scare here is that the Pirates do indeed bring him back next year. And when you do bring him back, let's say they have a great start to the season, like they have the last 2 years. But let's say around the middle of the year, like the last 2 seasons, they have a bad stretch of games that takes them out of it again. What do you do then? Do you make a decision on it then and possibly waste another year of what you've been trying to build for the last 5 now? I mean, these are real questions that you have to ask yourself, folks, when you're discussing this kind of thing. Because Is Derek Shelton the right guy? At this moment in time, with the sample size that I have and that you have at your disposal, I'm saying no. I'm not going to sit here and say that he couldn't have a great year with this team next season managing the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm not here to tell you that. What I'm here to tell you is based off of what we have already seen, what has already been done, and the performance on the field with the manager that we've seen in his tenure, it has flat out not been good enough. Especially not good enough to get a vote of confidence in saying that you are 100% sure and expect him to be back next season. That, my friends and fellow listeners and fellow Pirates fans, is psychotic. It really is. It's a decision that to me makes absolutely no sense, especially giving him a vote of confidence in the matter. And really, remember that ceiling I talked about with the starting pitching staff yesterday? Folks, ask yourself this question, and this is where I'll stop my rant on this, or else the whole show would be this. Ask yourself, how much of a ceiling do the Pirates have with Derek Shelton heading everything as the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates? How much does the ceiling go up? How much does the ceiling potentially go down? What is the floor? Ask yourself these questions when the Pirates consider these decisions with votes of confidence and expectations. Because remind yourself as well that this year was a year that was supposed to be the way it was, a winning season, because it's exactly what the manager told you, it's what the front office told you, and that's what the team told you. And right now, they're telling you that a manager with a .415 career winning percentage as the Pittsburgh Pirates manager is expected to be back next year. Do with that information what you will, but I disagree with it. Nevertheless, Pittsburgh Pirates swept the Miami Marlins and made history in the process in doing so. So we're going to highlight that as well as Bailey Falter's impressive performance this afternoon on the Locked On Pirates podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curates and makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And when you toggle all-in pricing, the all-in pricing feature shows you your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout and seat views. Those are always great, right? Because you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Game Time also has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time ticket coverage always makes sure your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. And after making this your first listen of the day, make sure you listen to Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan. He is prepping everyone for the MLB postseason as the MLB regular season comes to a close over on Locked On MLB, taking a look at everything going on around in the world of baseball, like will Aaron Judge catch his own American League home run record and many other things that are going on in the world of baseball. In the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates, though, they did sweep the Miami Marlins today, making sure that they won this 3-game series and getting the sweep. And on top of that, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the season when they opened the season in Miami, which they will do again in 2025, they swept a 4-game series of the Miami Marlins, meaning they won all 7 games against the Miami Marlins team that, mind you, folks, before I say the history that was made here, this was a playoff team last year. This was a team that was in the postseason in the wild card facing the Philadelphia Phillies. And now they are now 54-92 and just a shell of that team of last year. But for the first time in team history, the Pittsburgh Pirates managed a 7-game season sweep of a team. First time ever that they'd done so. So really good news there on that front. All 3 runs by the Pirates, by the way, that they scored in this 3-1 victory were all scored in the first 2 innings. But that was not really the story here. As far as the offense is concerned, though, Triolo, Gonzalez, and Reynolds all with multi-hit days, which were actually all the hits that the Pirates had. So 2 apiece from those guys. So good things to see there. But the story of this one, folks, has to be Bailey Falter. I mean, what a game from Bailey Falter. Has a no-hitter going into the 7th inning, folks. Throws 7 1/3 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 hits on the afternoon allowed. His ERA is a 4.2. And when you consider what I discussed yesterday, when I was talking about the pitching staff really being able to elevate this team into new heights, folks, you might have to consider Bailey Falter as a guy next year. He's been one of the more consistent guys on this roster this year, for all intents and purposes. Did not do that great last year. A lot of people also just kind of wanted to oust him right away in favor of Jared Jones, but he eventually stayed anyway. And again, I mean, you look at 128 2/3 innings, a 1.27 whip, 25 starts on the season for Bailey Falter. He's been a surprise. And this season has been chock full of surprises from the Pittsburgh Pirates. You look at Luis Ortiz and what he's been able to do as a starter. You look at Bailey Falter and what he's been able to do as a starter. You look at Joey Bart emerging as the best catching option on this team for the better part of the season since arriving from San Francisco. You look at Dennis Santana being a very, very good bullpen pickup out of virtually nowhere. But for Bailey Falter, this was a big game for him. He's had a very strong go of it as of late for the most part. Obviously, kind of struggled a little bit over the last 2 starts. 4 innings against Cleveland on the 30th of August. 5 innings of work against Washington on September 5th. But, I mean, if this is the 4th or the 5th guy in your rotation, I think you're going to walk away with that a lot. I mean, any team with the 4th or 5th guy in the back end of their rotation having a 4.2 ERA and 130 innings pretty much, you're going to be happy with that. And he was very impressive today. Now, albeit, again, let's all remind ourselves, this is a Marlins team that is not very good. I mean, it's been a Marlins team that has just not flat out been good at all this year. But either way, still major league hitting. And Bailey Falter was kind of flirting with history. Now, I don't think he would have finished it, obviously, if he would have kept the no-hitter going. Throwing, from what I remember, 93 pitches up to that point. So, yeah, he wouldn't have finished the game. But Colin Holderman comes in. Pretty good outing from him. 2/3 innings. No hits allowed. Just gets out of it. And they brought in David Bednar to close this one after everything we've heard about David Bednar not closing out games anymore. And he struggled. I mean, he just did. He gave up a run. It was albeit an unearned run. He did have 2 strikeouts, allowed 2 hits, and then Jalen Beeks came on for the save. But this was just an impressive series, and I discussed it about what it means for the Pirates to finish this season strong. I mean, folks, if they can manage to win 12 games somehow down the stretch, which is a lot to ask, but if they can get hot, or even just 11 or 10 games, being in that 80 win mark, I think, is massive, even if it's 80 and 82, which means they would have to go 10-6 in their final 16 games. I think that's doable. This is a Royals team that they're going to be playing this weekend that is a wild card team and will be in the playoffs more than likely. But it's a beatable team. And then you have St. Louis and Cincinnati, who you've already proven you can beat this year as well. So you like to see the Pirates get these wins against teams that they really just should beat. In Miami, the Washington series, I think you would have liked that to be a series win rather than a split. But they're ending the season strong. They already know that you're going to have some good pitching this weekend. We're obviously going to preview the series on Friday a little bit more. But this was a good series. And for a guy like Bailey Falter, you like to see him go out there and have success. You like to see him go out there and really battle and compete and be a very good pitcher on this roster. And I think that's what you saw here. You just saw him compete today. You saw him just fill the strike zone. I mean, he even did something he's only ever done 5 times in his career, which was strike out the side. And it was the first time he'd ever done it in the first inning of a game. So big stuff from Bailey Falter. Big stuff from the Pittsburgh Pirates as they move to 70 and 76. But it also appears that Andrew McCutchen will be returning next season. We'll talk about that shortly. But also, what is the model for improvement for the Pirates to get over the hump? We'll discuss on Locked On Pirates. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5 because PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard. 1. Gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. Folks, that's 4 weeks of free W's. So don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. Shout out Green Day. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Alrighty, folks, and welcome back to the final part of today's episode of Locked On Pirates. When the Pirates play the Royals on Friday, make sure you go to the SiriusXM app, type in Pirates, and you can listen to the Pittsburgh Pirates on the go as the season comes to a close. By the way, if you're going to Pittsburgh Saturday, stay safe, everybody. Got the Pirates having a home game at 1:05. Obviously, the backyard brawl between Pitt and West Virginia. So everybody just make sure they stay safe if you're going to the game Saturday. And Andrew McCutchen, who hit his 20th home run of the season the other night, does plan on being back in 2025. And when talking to Sports Illustrated, when they asked him why he's coming back in 2025, said, because I can do it. It's plain and simple. I said this earlier. If I don't embarrass myself, then I'm going to continue, keep going and doing it. And if I get the opportunity, I'm going to. At the end of the day, that's me personally. So obviously, Kutch set to be a free agent again. But that's just going to be something as far as him continuing to be here. That's just going to happen. I mean, he's just going to go on 1-year deals. The team's going to ask him how he feels, what's going on, how he feels about coming back. That's just going to be how things go. And if Kutch does come back, you already know his role. He's going to be a designated hitter. He can't really do much else anymore at this point. He's not really going to be that kind of guy anymore where he's going to play outfield or anything. He's going to designated hit, which, if he returns, kind of closes the door on certain things like, Andy Rodriguez DHing and people like that. But what are you going to do? I mean, I think Kutch, as long as he's helping the team in a positive way, I think it's a good thing for him to be back. As far as improvement for this team, obviously there's going to be some offseason moves. There's going to be a lot of offseason chatter about what the Pirates could go get and what they need to go do. And we already know what they need to do as far as positions are concerned. It's just a matter of how they do it. So, when considering that, what is the model for improvement for this team? I really don't even think it's all that difficult because I think we've seen it. When this bullpen specifically is on and the starting pitching is playing at the caliber that it knows it can, this team's ceiling just skyrockets. Because then all you're really asking out of your offense is, hey, give us 4 runs. Give us 5 runs, 3 runs at times. If you could do that, we're going to win the game more often than not. And that's really what this season came down to, is the bullpen just was not as good on paper as we expected it to be. It was a unit that all of us thought, including myself, was going to be a lethal one, especially with Colin Holderman, Aroldis Chapman, and David Bednar manning things late in games. And it just didn't work out that way. And you go back and look out through this entire season and how things were supposed to work out. Jack Sawinski just didn't work out this year. Henry Davis just didn't work out this year. I mean, Martin Perez and Marco Gonzalez were guys that were here at one point. Martin Perez, obviously, in San Diego. Marco Gonzalez, probably not going to pitch for this team ever again. You look at Rowdy Tellez and what kind of player he was at the beginning of the season versus what he is now. Still not what you'd want, but still a very good player. So at the end of the day, with all things considered, I think the model for improvement is just consistency across the board. We've seen this team be very good. We've seen them at their best. We've seen this team at their worst. And the problem with that is when everybody's hot, everybody's hot. But when the Pirates are losing, it's a collective effort for the most part. Everything goes cold in the snap of a finger. So if the Pirates going into next season can just find any sliver of consistency across the board, folks, they have one of the better chances to be a playoff team, especially with the starting pitching staff that they have right now as far as things stand. So you consider all that. You say if it's really just consistency, let's see if they can build it. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. My name is Ethan Smith. Follow me right there on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates, from a lifelong fan to lifelong fans just like you. Find the show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms because it is free and available to you every Monday through Friday. Speaking of, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you on Friday. But until then, see you on the flip side.